the nations of Europe plus Canada coming together to build a new form of NATO alliance to which they would contribute troops, ships, planes, and all the other stuff. And that is entirely possible. But again, it needs the political will and the recognition that after everything that Trump, Hegseth, Vance have said, America is just not in the room.
When a minerals deal between America and Ukraine was first on the table, one senior congressman called it extortion. The original proposal was to take Ukrainian resources to pay back America for the weapons it had already sent to fight the Russians. But the deal that has been finally signed is more forward-looking, or probably is more forward-looking. America will get a slice of Ukraine's resources in return for help in the future. And the deal also came with some unusually tough words from America towards Russia. This is US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent.
Today's agreement signals clearly to Russian leadership that the Trump administration is committed to a peace process centered on a free, sovereign, and prosperous Ukraine over the long term. It's time for this cruel and senseless war to end. The killing must stop, and both the United States and the government of Ukraine look forward to quickly operationalizing this historic economic partnership for both the Ukrainian and American people.
So is it a good deal for Ukraine? Alexander Merezhko is chair of Foreign Affairs Committee in the Ukrainian Parliament and a member of President Zelensky's party. Alexander, good morning to you.
Good morning.
You're a good man to ask that question too. Is this a good deal for Ukraine?
It's a good question. I haven't seen yet the text of this document, and I can make my final conclusion only on the basis of the final document. At the same time, we can make some conclusions or judgments on the basis of the information received from our Prime Minister. And seems like this kind of document is much better than the previous one, than the initial one. I would say, my guess is that it's a win-win situation because we managed to prevent the military assistance provided by the United States to Ukraine. We managed to prevent it from turning into our debt. Which is an important issue because otherwise it would open Pandora box. Second important issue that for us it's extremely important, this deal not to hamper our ambition to become the EU member. It's also important. Seems like instead of debt, we will be having investments in our economy, we'll be having economic partnership with the United States. But the thing is that when the survival of the country and the nation is at stake, we have to be flexible because we want to have good relations with President Trump. We cannot afford to spoil relations, and I see that he's very quick in terms of trying to show result or win for his audience, for his voters, for his 100 days in the office.
Yeah, but this doesn't appear to come with American security guarantees. This is a deal where basically you're giving up 50% of your minerals to America. Do you think that brings with it effectively a security guarantee because Americans won't want that resource to be damaged in any way and therefore they'll stand with you against Russia? Or is it a problem that there's no formal guarantee alongside it?
Initially, the whole idea behind this deal was to have sort of a swap, to quid pro quo. Ukraine gives access to mineral strategic resources to the United States, which remains our closest ally and closest partner. And in exchange, we receive security guarantees. Of course, it was the major issue, at least in the beginning. As for security guarantees, the best security guarantee for Ukraine is NATO membership. Yeah. Of course, it remains to be so.
Which is not going to happen.
But at the same time, I would call it quasi-economic security guarantees because, the more American economic interests are in Ukraine and our economy, the better chances are for our survival, the better chances we have for support from the United States. Because I hope that this deal will open the way for Ukraine to receive more military assistance from the United States. But how it will be in reality, I don't know at present moment.
This may be a wrong question to ask, but why should America benefit from all of this in this economic deal when Europe, which has paid more money in, given more support to Ukraine, is still offering more support to Ukraine, is more of a firm ally to Ukraine? Why does America get the good economic deal, but the EU or Britain or your European allies doesn't?
Well, it's a very fair, legitimate question to which I don't have answer because I haven't seen again the text. But from my perspective, yes, we should treat our European partners on equal footing with our American partners because, yeah, it's true. The European countries have provided us even maybe more of material, at least in terms of economic support, and they deserve to have access also to natural resources in the same way without any kind of discrimination. And this issue might be raised in the process of Ukraine's European integration.
Yeah.
I haven't seen the text yet, but it's quite a legitimate question to ask, and I hope that it was taken into consideration when the text of this document was drafted by the Cabinet of Ministers.
Yeah, well, and as you say, the details will come out and we'll get more information as we go along. Alexander, always good to speak to you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
That's Alexander Merezhko, chair of the Foreign Affairs Committee in the Ukrainian Parliament. Where does this leave Ukraine militarily? That's the question, I suppose, on all our minds. What does it mean for the war? General Sir Richard Shirreff is the former Deputy Supreme Allied Commander of Europe, often shares his expertise with us on this programme. Richard, good morning to you.
Good morning, Sig.
There's no security guarantee in the deal. We just heard Mr. Merezhko there saying it's a sort of quasi-financial security arrangement and nothing further than that. That's the worry, isn't it? That ultimately the US is not interested in security in any meaningful sense.
It is. I mean, I think we're all still trying to dig out the full detail of this. I mean, on the positive side is the commitment to a free, independent, and sovereign Ukraine. Also positive is that American military capability will continue. But on the other hand, the capitulation peace deal that Trump was trying to broker still appears to be on the table, or hasn't been taken off the table. There is absolutely no indication that Russia is prepared to stop, let up, or change its strategy in any way. And peace looks as far away as it ever did. And it's difficult to see how there can be any economic exploitation of Ukraine if there is no peace.
And the US aren't willing to provide means to secure that peace. We might have to accept, Richard, and it feels like the last couple of months have been bad news for those people who believe Europe is getting its act together as a military force, is willing to muster troops, to put the troops on Ukraine, to give guarantees to Ukraine. Do we have to accept that Europe is neither willing nor able to muster a force in support of Ukraine directly?
Well, I'd never say never, but I think you're right. It's been bad news for those of us who've been saying that this is Europe's moment to step up and really take the bit between its teeth, because Europe appears to be faltering, and there doesn't seem to be the political leadership, the moral courage, and the willingness to make the sacrifices necessary. And that's really bad news for future, not only Ukrainian security, but European security as a whole.
Have we been misled a little bit on this, including by our own government? Because remember, a couple of months ago, it was, we'll do for as long as it takes. There was talk of 20, 30,000 armed troops in Ukraine, primarily from France and the United Kingdom. And that seems to have disappeared.
Well, what hasn't disappeared are the platitudes, as long as it takes with Ukraine for 100 years, or as President Macron said, we can never let Russia win in Ukraine. And the missing link, of course, is the willingness to dig deep and do what needs to be done. And that's as far away from ever. So I don't think we've been misled, but I think what we're hearing is continued hot air without any real substance.
And what should that substance be in your view, Richard? I mean, are we actually able? Is there a European force that could be mustered, including maybe even dominated by the United Kingdom, or is that just a pipe dream?
Well, what it should be, I mean, what we need, and the first one is to recognize that there will never be a lasting peace until Russia is defeated militarily in Ukraine. And then you sit down and say, right, what do we need to do that? We need to design a strategy. We need to muster the ways, the means to do so. On the face of it, you would think that this is entirely possible with European combined GDPs 12 times that of Russia, a population of Europe 4 times that of Russia. We could do it, but it requires, as I go on, I can't say it again, that it requires guts and courage and determination and a willingness to make sacrifice and a willingness to recognize what needs to be done, and that has yet to be heard.
And is that two stages? One, that would mean, I mean, Germany's just accessing, 500 billion euros of money to spend on defence. We're all spending more on defence. Is that in the first instance to arm Ukraine better, so whatever deal it eventually strikes, it's done from a position of an advantage, and then being willing to have some sort of European force, a NATO without America, as it were, to enforce that peace?
Well, firstly, let's not take anything for granted until the so-called debt brake is in place and Merz is in government, and that, as I understand it, is still some way off, and it might, it could falter at the last minute. But essentially, you're absolutely right. What it means is saying, right, what does Ukraine need to achieve the success over Russia that I just outlined? And that means strategic thinking about that. And then the second aspect, absolutely right, you haven't really touched on that, is how you Europeanize a NATO in which America cannot be trusted as an ally, and Europe and Canada have got to go it alone.
And is that a kind of European force of some description?
Well, it would be European, the nations of Europe plus Canada coming together to build a new form of NATO alliance to which they would contribute troops, ships, planes, and all the other stuff. And that is entirely possible. But again, it needs the political will and the recognition that after everything that Trump, Hegseth, Vance have said, America is just not in the room.